Okay, it's 1 o'clock. I'd like to call this meeting to order. The proceedings of this meeting will be recorded and made available on the internet. And I'd like to move on to item 1.2 of our agenda, which is roll call, and ask our clerk, Jesse Clark, to please call the roll.
Thank you. Mayor Lamstead, are you present?
I am present.
Deputy Mayor Armstrong?
I'm present.
Councillor Franzen?
Present.
Councillor Braybrook?
Present.
Councillor Cadigan?
Present.
For staff, we have Donna Taggart, CAO Treasurer. Present. Dylan Kosh, Director of Recreation and Facilities. Is on the line. Barb Waldron, Director of Building and Planning, CBO. Present. Adele Arbor, Planner. Present. Bianca Dragistovic, Deputy Clerk.
Present.
Derek Bertram, Planning Technician.
Present.
And Jesse Clark, Director of Corporate Services Clerk, is present.
Okay, thank you very much for calling the roll. I will move on now to item 1.3 of the agenda, which is land acknowledgement and moment of reflection. I think Councillor Franzen, you have something you would like to discuss at this time?
Yeah, I'd like to mention at this time that we lost Carl Beck. Carl Beck was a councillor for Harvey Ward, or Harvey Township at the time. I knew him a little bit. He toured me around Harvey when the amalgamation was taking place. We were working on transition team, making recommendations to the incoming council. I found him to be really a nice gentleman and saw him a few times after that, but very briefly.
Thank you.
He'll be missed in this area.
Thank you very much, Councillor
Nobody's
Franzen.
Creek, so.
Very important part of our community, and thank you for bringing that to our attention. Okay, we will move on to land acknowledgements. We respectfully acknowledge that Trent Lakes and Peterborough County are located on the Treaty 20 Mississauga territory and the traditional territory of the Mississauga and Chippewa nations, collectively known as the Williams Treaty First Nation, which include Alderville, Beausoleil, Curve Lake, Georgina Island, Hiawatha, Rama, and Scugog Island First Nation. Trent Lakes respectfully acknowledges that the Williams Treaty First Nations are the stewards and caretakers of these lands and waters in perpetuity, and that they will continue to maintain this responsibility to ensure their health and integrity for generations to come. We will now take a moment to reflect on these principles and our duties and responsibilities as members of council. Thank you. We'll move on to item 2 of our agenda, which is disclosure of pecuniary interest. If any member has an interest in an item on our agenda, please discuss it now, disclose it now, or anytime during the meeting prior to discussing anything on the item you have a pecuniary interest in. I'm seeing no hands. We can move on to item 3 of our agenda, which is the approval of the agenda is circulated. I would entertain a motion for same. See Deputy Mayor Armstrong for mover and Councillor Cadigan for seconder. Any conversation regarding the agenda? I'm seeing none. I will call for the vote. All in favor? That motion is carried. We can move on to item 4 of the agenda, which is the adoption of the minutes of our special council meeting July 13th, our regular council meeting July 16th, and our statutory public meeting of July 16th, and our statutory public meeting of July 16th. We can do them all at once, or we can do them individually. Go ahead, Councillor Braber.
A motion to adopt all 4.
Okay. Do I have a seconder for that motion? I see Councillor Cadigan for a seconder. Any conversation about the minutes? I'm seeing none. I will call for the vote. All in favor? That motion has carried. I'll move on to item 5 of our agenda, which is committees and boards. Item 5.1 is liaison reports for council boards and committees. Does anyone have anything to discuss? I am seeing none. We can move on to item 6 of our agenda, which is a statutory public meeting pursuant to the Planning Act. I would entertain a motion for to end our regular council meeting and go into a public meeting. I see Councillor Cadigan for a mover and Deputy Mayor Armstrong for a seconder. I will call for the vote. All in favor? That motion is carried. We are now going into a public meeting, and I think Derek Bertram, our planning technician, who would like to speak to this item.
Thank you. Through you, Mayor Lambshead. This is a public meeting under Section 34 of the Planning Act to consider an amendment to the municipality's comprehensive zoning law, bylaw B 2014-070 as amended. A notice of public meeting for today's applications containing the prescribed information was circulated to all landowners within 120-meter radius of the subject lands at least 20 days prior to this meeting, and a sign was posted on the subject lands in accordance with the Planning Act. The notice was mailed to all prescribed agencies, public bodies, and persons in accordance with the regulations, and anyone wanting to be notified of any decisions from today's public meeting must inform either myself or the clerk, and the notice of passing will be mailed out to them, setting out the method and manner in which appeals may be made to the Ontario Land Tribunal. If a person does not send in a written comment prior to the passing of a bylaw or make an oral submission at a public meeting, that person may not be entitled to appeal the decision.
Okay, thank you very much, Derek, for the preamble. You can introduce the first file if you'd like.
Thank you. Through you again, Mr. Lambhead, Mayor Lambhead. On today's agenda, we have zoning bylaw amendment 2407 submitted by Greg and Karen Lenny for 82 Fire Route 213. The purpose of the zoning bylaw amendment is to replace an existing seasonal dwelling within the 30-meter water yard. The applicant is seeking relief from the as of right 50% expansion to ground floor area provision for an existing ground floor area of 447 square feet to a proposed 1,972 square feet, which is calculated at a 341% increase. The applicant is also seeking relief from the distance to an exterior side yard setback of 6 meters or 19.7 feet to 3.2 meters for the attached garage on the south of the property. The applicant is proposing to relocate the existing seasonal dwelling to the southeast corner of the property and alter the structure to meet the definition of a guest cabin. The relocation shall require relief from both the interior and exterior side yard setbacks. There's a planning report on today's agenda from the municipality's planning consultant, Chris Jones, which is in support of the replacement dwelling. No comments have been received on behalf of the application. And at this time, if any members of the public would like to make an oral submission in the physical gallery, please raise your hand now. Or if there are any members in the virtual gallery, please use the raise a hand function and wait to be called upon to make your oral submission. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Derek. Is there anyone in the physical gallery that would like to speak to this item? I'm seeing no hands. Is there anyone in the virtual gallery that would like to speak to this item? No? Okay. Does any member of council have any comments or questions? I'm seeing none. Must be a very thorough and detailed report. Thank you very much, Derek. We can move on to item 6.2 of our agenda. Does staff have any comments or questions? I'm seeing none. We can move on to item 6.2 of our agenda, and Derek Bertram, would you please introduce this one?
Thank you. Through you, Mayor Lambhead again. Our second zoning bylaw amendment has been submitted by Agent Jacob Clark of MJ Davenport for the property owners William Edmondson and Nancy Endicott for the property known municipally as 80 Fire Route 277. The purpose of the zoning bylaw amendment is to amend an existing special exception zone to construct a lake-facing open-air deck and extend a covered entryway. The existing special exception zone was created in 2021 for a replacement dwelling, which has been completed. The applicant is seeking relief from section 4.30.1, which is the general setback provisions for water bodies, to construct a 67.9 square meter lake-facing open-air deck. Staff noted that this area had previously been occupied by a deck prior to the replacement dwelling having been constructed in 2022. The amendment is also increasing the total ground floor area of the dwelling to include the extension of a covered entryway, which is considered to be ground floor area. There is a planning report on today's agenda from the municipality's planning technician, which is in support of the amendment. No comments have been received on behalf of the application. And at this time, if any members of the public would want to make an oral submission in the physical gallery, please raise your hand. If there's any members in the virtual gallery, please use the raise a hand function to be called upon to make your oral submission.
Okay, thank you very much, Derek. Is there anyone in the physical gallery that would like to speak? Seeing none, is there anyone in the virtual gallery that would like to speak to this item? Seeing none, does any? Oh,
I have Marie Davenport. I'll unmute you now.
hello, Murray Davenport, are you there?
Yes, yeah, it's Murray Davenport. I'm just here to respond to any questions that council might have. Otherwise, we're in favor of the report that's presented by staff.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Davenport. Does anyone in council have any questions for Mr. Davenport? I am seeing none. Thank you very much for attending, Mr. Davenport. We will talk to you soon. Okay, does any comments, council members have any questions regarding this? Okay, we can move on to item 6.3 of our agenda, which is another zoning bylaw amendment. Derek Bertram, our planning technician, can you please speak to this item?
Thank you. Through you, Mayor Lambhead. Our third zoning bylaw amendment has been submitted by owner Mark Lula for the property known municipally as 2 Fire Route 400. The purpose of the zoning amendment application is a condition of consent application B6, number 23, for the creation of a new lot. The proposed and retained lot shall be rezoned from rural designation to rural holding. The holding provision shall prohibit all development from occurring until such time as a scoped environmental impact study has been submitted to the municipality, which may require a site plan or development agreement subsequent to reviewing the report. There is a planning report on today's agenda from the municipality's planning technician, which is generally supportive of the zoning bylaw amendment. Comments have been received after the posting of the agenda from the Kawartha Regional Conservation Authority, who stated that the subject lands are outside of their jurisdiction. No further comments were received, and at this time, if any members of the public need to make an oral submission in the physical gallery, please raise your hand. If there's any members in the virtual gallery, you may also raise your hand to be called upon.
Okay, thank you very much, Derek. Is there anyone in the physical gallery that would like to speak to this item? I'm seeing none. Is there anyone in the virtual gallery that would like to speak to this item? I'm seeing none. I don't know if you're still on there, Murray, but you can listen to us continue, or you can exit if you'd like. Okay, does anyone on council have any comments or questions regarding this? I'm seeing none. Okay, we can move now on to item 6.4 of our agenda. Derek Bertram, would you like to speak to this item?
Thank you, and through you, Mayor Lambshead. Our fourth zoning bylaw amendment on today's agenda has been submitted by Agent Pam Cope-Baker on behalf of owners Jesse and Ashley LaPlante Graham for the property known municipally as 74 Oak Ridge Road. The purpose of the zoning bylaw amendment is a condition of consent to adjust a lot line due to an accessory structure encroachment. The severed lands are currently zoned rural and the benefiting lands are zoned rural residential, and to avoid a split zone category, the severed lands shall be zoned as rural residential to match 74 Oak Ridge Road. There's a planning report on today's agenda from the municipality's planning technician, which is in support of the proposal. No comments have been received for the application. And at this time, if any members in the public, any individuals in the public would like to make an oral submission in the physical gallery, please raise your hand now. If any members in the virtual gallery, you may also raise your hand to be called upon.
Thank you very much, Derek. Is there anyone in the physical gallery that would like to speak to this item? I'm seeing none. Anyone? Anyone? No one? Okay. Anyone in the virtual gallery that would like to speak to this item? There. Okay. Is there any members of council that have any comments or questions? I'm seeing none. Can't believe we will. Thank you very much for introducing this file there. We can move on to item 6.5 of our agenda, which is zoning bylaw amendment file 2417. And I think Adele Arbor, our planner, we would like to speak to this item, please.
Yes, thank you. And through you, Mr. Mayor, this is a public meeting for file number 24-17 to consider a zoning bylaw amendment submitted by owners Braden and Stacy Cruz for the property municipally known as 38 Bolton's Road, operating as Tecasee Ranch. The purpose of the application is to amend the rural 71B holding zone to include a parking lot and a future assembly storage structure, which is approximately proposed at 1,536 square feet. It is also being proposed to remove the holding provision from the rural 71A, rural 71B, and rural 71C zones. The subject lands have undergone a concurrent official plan amendment and zoning bylaw amendment in 2017, official plan amendment 49, and zoning bylaw amendment B 2018-055 were approved to permit the use of 38 Bolton's Road as a recreational trail facility with accommodation facilities and other accessory uses operating as Tecasee Ranch. Staff have been working with the owners and had several meetings over an extended period of time to finalize a site plan agreement. Over this time, Tecasee Ranch has decided to scale back their proposed development of the property, which is resulting in this minor zoning bylaw amendment application to permit parking in a different location on the property and allow for a future build of the assembly storage building. The scaling back of activities has been included in the site plan agreement, a provision to utilize the unopened road allowance on Fire Route 10 and introduce timing as to when to upgrade Bolton's Road and include a pond for firefighting purposes when it become necessary. As the property is also currently subject to a holding provision, It is intended to remove the hold at the same time as the zoning bylaw amendment is being processed. The following conditions of removal of the hold will have been satisfied. One, that a site plan agreement has been agreed upon and will be executed by the owner and the municipality prior to September 3rd and subsequently registered on title. And B, that the owner has undertaken and completed a species at risk assessment for lands located in the rural 71B holding zone. And such study has been reviewed and cleared by the Ministry of Natural Resources and Forestry. The species at risk report has been submitted, reviewed, and a clearance letter has been provided by the ministry. The County of Peterborough's Engineering and Design Department were circulated the draft site plan agreement, and they have responded that they have no concerns with the zoning bylaw amendment application. There is a planning report in support of the application. This concludes a summary of the proposed zoning bylaw amendment application. Mr. Mayor, I now turn it over to you for the public input portion of the meeting.
Okay, thank you very much, Adele Arbor. Is there anyone in the gallery that would like to speak for or against this application? I'm seeing none. Is there anyone in the virtual gallery that would like to speak for or against this application? We are seeing no hands. Is there anyone on council that has any comments or questions? Seeing none. Okay, thank you very much, Adele Arbor. We can move on to item 7 of our agenda, which is business arising out of our statutory public meeting. I will entertain a motion to reconvene our regular council meeting. Deputy Mayor Armstrong and Councillor Franzen for a seconder. I will call for the vote. All in favor? That motion is carried. Okay, thank you. We can move on to item 7.1 of our agenda. Derek Bertram, our planning technician, would you like to speak to this item?
Thank you, through Mayor Lambshead. There was a public meeting held for file number 2407. At this time, the planning memorandum has made the following recommendation: that council approve the attached zoning bylaw amendment to permit the applicant's proposed replacement dwelling upon confirmation of the planning from the planning department that the following items have been completed or submitted: executed site plan agreement, executed encroachment agreement for the use of the unopened road allowance, and confirmation that the applicant's lot is registered to a single owner with a single PIN. And staff can confirm that the site plan agreement and encroachment agreement have been submitted and that the property, which was under 3 separate PINs, has been consolidated as one.
Thank you very much, Derek Bertram. Anyone have any comments or questions or prepared to make a motion? I see Deputy Mayor Armstrong. Go ahead.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor Lambshead. I do have a question. I perhaps should have asked it earlier, but I didn't. I see that my understanding is that they're going to transition the existing cottage into a guest cabin.
Correct.
It conforms with the maximum size of 480 square feet. My question is one more of clarification. What's the difference between a guest cabin, which has a maximum of 480, and a bunkie, which has a maximum of 100 and some? It's just not clear to me. Both neither can have plumbing. I get that. So I just know what the difference is.
Of course, through you, Mayor Lambshead. The differentiating factor really is the habitable space. So like you mentioned, no plumbing, no cooking facilities. The main thing is no indoor plumbing. It can't act essentially as a secondary dwelling. It is just specifically the sole use would be for temporary sleeping quarters of the nature thereof. So yeah, the intent is to take the very nice looking cottage that exists there now and then move it over in its relatively similar fashion, just removing the upper floor, which is the loft, and then the front deck, so that he does meet the size requirements for a guest cabin.
So can I follow up? So if I build a structure that's 400 square feet in size, and I'm using it as a bunkie, but I tell you it's a guest cabin, then I can build a bunkie up to that size by just renaming it. And Barb's trying to help me out of my conundrum here. I'm just sorry to be stuck on this, but I'm really trying to understand it.
Go ahead, Barbara, would you like to answer that question?
The zoning bylaw doesn't speak to bunkie. It only speaks to a guest cabin. So bunkie is kind of a slang word that people use, but it means the same thing as a guest cabin. We call it a guest cabin. So there's no such thing as a bunkie that can be on the property for sleeping and a guest cabin. It's basically the same.
Thank you. And just one more question.
Absolutely.
But you need a building permit for a guest cabin, but not for something that's less than 100 and some square feet. Is that true?
Mayor Lamb said, so a bunkie may be applied for if it is under 108 square feet. it doesn't need to have a building permit. But if it is greater than 108 square feet and it's still considered to be a guest cabin, then it would need a building permit.
Perfect.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay.
Yep.
Any other questions or comments? Is anyone prepared to make a motion? Go ahead, Councillor Cadigan.
One more question, if
Sure.
through you, Mayor. The building that they're proposing and the building that exists appear to be in the water area. Have they purchased their waterfront there, or?
Yes, through you, Mayor Lamb. Yes, there's been significant work on this property. As mentioned, there was 3 separate pins, 3 different parcels essentially assembling this property. And yes, it was purchased. And there was unfortunately considerable delays over the course of this application because it was not under one singular PIN number. We've had this application for almost 2 years because of that.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, any other comments or questions? Anyone prepared to make a motion? Councillor Cadigan for movers.
Approved.
Approved. Do I have a seconder for that motion? Deputy Mayor Armstrong for a seconder. Any other conversation? Seeing none, I will call for the vote. All in favor? That motion has carried. We can move on now to item 7.2 of our agenda. Derek Bertram, our planning technician, would you like to speak to this item?
Thank you. Through you, Mayor Lamb, there was a public meeting held for file number 2413. Planning staff have advanced a bylaw for the amendment for council's consideration and approval at today's council meeting.
Okay. Anyone have any comments or questions? Seeing none, is anyone prepared to make a vote? Councillor Franzen?
Yeah, make a motion of support.
Do I have a seconder for that motion? See Councillor Cadigan for a seconder. Any other conversation? I'm seeing none. I will call for the vote. All in favor? That motion is carried. We can move on now to item 7.3 of our agenda. Derek Bertram, our planning technician, would you please speak to this item?
Thank you. Through you, Mayor Lamb, again, there was also a public meeting held for file number 2414. And at this time, another bylaw has been amended. Another bylaw amendment has advanced to council's consideration for approval for today's council meeting.
Okay, thank you very much. Oops, wrong one. There we go. Okay, does anyone on council like to have a question or a comment or speak to this item? Go ahead, Deputy Mayor Armstrong, go ahead.
A motion to support.
Okay, do I have a seconder for that motion? I see Councillor Franzen for a seconder. Any other conversation regarding this zoning bylaw amendment? I'm seeing none. I will call for the vote. All in favor? That motion has carried. We can move on to item 7.5 of our agenda. And Adele Arbor, would you like to speak to this item, our planner?
Thank you, and through you, Mr. Mayor, subsequent to the public.
Oops, I'm sorry, my apologies. I think we have one more zoning bylaw. I knew I was putting that check mark in the wrong spot. My apologies. Derek Bertram, would you like to speak to this item,
Thank you.
7.4?
Through you, Mayor Lamb, sorry for bringing so many zoning bylaw amendments again.
He's never apologized.
There was also a public meeting held for file 2415. And at this time, a bylaw amendment has been advanced to council's consideration for approval for today's council meeting.
Thank you very much. Sorry for jumping ahead one. Anybody on council have any comments or questions regarding this zoning bylaw amendment? Seeing none, is anyone prepared to make a motion? See Councillor Cadigan, go ahead.
Motion approved.
Okay, do I have a seconder for that motion? Councillor Franzen for a seconder. Any other conversation? I'm seeing none. I will call for the vote. All in favor? That motion has carried. Now, we can move on to 7.5 of our agenda, which is Adele Arbor, our planner. Would you like to speak to this item? Thank you very much, Derek.
Thank you, and through you, Mr. Mayor, I was just assuming you were shaking the order up. Subsequent to
Would
the
not be the
public
first.
meeting held this afternoon for file number 24-17. At this time, staff are recommending the following: that council receive the report from the planner, and further that council direct staff to prepare the zoning bylaw amendment reflecting the recommendations of this report, and that this bylaw be brought forward to the September 3rd, 2024 council meeting for consideration and approval.
Okay, thank you very much, Adele. Is there anyone on the council have any comments or questions? Go ahead, Councillor Braber.
Motion to receive the report and to direct staff to prepare the zoning bylaw amendment with the conditions as stated by Ms. Arbor.
Okay, thank you very much. Do we have a seconder for that motion? Mr. Cadigan for a seconder. Any other conversation regarding this motion? Seeing none, I will call for the vote. All in favor? That motion is carried. Okay, we can move on now. Thank you very much, Adele, and thank you very much, Derek. We can move on to item 8 of our agenda, which is presentations. Item 8.1 is Jeffrey McIntosh, Vice President, Public Sector of Aon. Would you like to please come up to our desk and computer and start your presentation? Welcome.
Thank you very much. Through you, Mayor Lambshead. Thank you all for having me here today. I do appreciate you taking the time to have me here. My name is Jeff McIntosh. I'm Vice President for Aon. We are the municipality's insurance broker. So I just wanted to give you a little update as to kind of the insurance market right now and the recent renewal of the municipality's insurance program. Next slide, please. So a little insurance market update. So thankfully, the pricing environment is starting to get a lot more competitive. You may have heard me discuss this in the past, but the insurance market's very cyclical. So it goes from a hard market where there's not a lot of capacity, pricing increases, to a soft market. So we've been in a hard market for about the past 5 years, and luckily right now the market's starting to soften. So this is very good for buyers of insurance because there's more competition, more capacity in the marketplace, and that usually leads to a holding of premium rates for insureds. As I said, there's more capacity in the market, so new entrants, so insurers that might not have written certain risks in the past are starting to write those risks now. So it's all about looking out for which place has best coverage, pricing, and the combination of that. Public sector, such as the municipality, is still a tough risk due to the nature of its operations and a lack of insurer appetite. There's a lot of high-profile claims, media attention, and roads and highways are always a big risk factor for accidents and things like that that cause very large monetary claims. One nice thing is that cyber insurance premiums are stabilizing, so we've seen them rise dramatically in the past couple of years, but they have been stabilizing. Public sector organizations like yourselves are a very big risk for hackers, but the key thing is investing in good controls, and that's something that the municipality has done very well in the past few years to ensure that they're not an easy target for these hackers. But the key thing is to continue to invest in these types of controls so that you're not an easy target for hackers, and that will hopefully lead to premium reductions in the future as well. Next slide, please. So just a little bit about the recent renewal for the municipality. So we were able to hold premium steady for most lines of business. There was a small decrease to the cyber premium as well. You may have seen that there was a large increase to the property premium, and this was basically due to a recently completed appraisal, which saw your total insured values to basically double from around 22 million to 44 million. Property insurance is calculated on a rate basis, so we were able to hold the rate steady, but the premium is higher due to the increased cost to replace the municipality's assets. This is, it might be a tough pill to swallow to see that increase, but appraisals are key to ensuring that your assets are protected correctly. So there have been a lot of increases to construction costs, materials and stuff since the pandemic. So it's very vital to ensure that you're insuring your assets up to value. That way, if there is a loss of, a building or some other type of asset, you will receive that monetary value back so that you can make yourself whole again if there were to be a loss. So appraisals are very instrumental in ensuring that you're insuring up to value so that if there is a loss, you will be made whole again. Next slide, please. So a little bit of what we're doing from our side to drive value to the municipality is, so we take the municipality's account out to every market that's willing to quote. So a lot of our other brokerages kind of have a program where it's, for liability, it's this insurer, it's this insurer. What we like to do is that we'll take your account and offer it to any insurer that has, experience writing public sector risks, as opposed to trying to fit you into a box of a certain program. So this leads to, some competition between insurers, as opposed to, just, the price is the price. And it allows for more choice for the municipality because you can then look at, okay, coverage versus pricing, as opposed to just saying, hey, this is the one option we have for you. Another thing is that we were able to get a preferential rate for the appraisal project through Suncorp due to being an Aon client. These can get very expensive, but we do a lot of work with Suncorp, so we're able to secure that rate for you. Another thing we do is that we work with the staff here to ensure that risk management best practices are being implemented wherever they can. So, we've come up here, done an inspection of the Buckhorn Sports Pad. It's a facility user program that's been tried out recently as well. So it's really making sure that, claims, we're being proactive in terms of risk management to ensure that claims don't happen. And another thing that goes along hand in hand with this is, constant communication with staff. So if they have any questions about risk management, new policies, new procedures, they can call up us. We'll give them advice on contracts, things like that. But really just using what we see across the board from our municipal clients to ensure that the best practices are being implemented here as well. Because ultimately what drives pricing is claims. And so the less claims you have, the lower your premiums will be in the future. So it's really essential that you put the best risk management practices into place so that you give yourself the best chance of having lower claims experience, which will hopefully lead to lower pricing in the future as well. Next slide. You can go to the next slide as well, actually. So I just want to say thank you for your business. We do appreciate it. We really value being a partner with the municipality here. We've been on risk for a couple of years now, and just want to say thank you for your business. And I'm happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Okay, thank you very much, Jeffrey McIntosh. Anyone on council have any questions of Jeffrey? Go ahead, Councilor Braybrook.
Thank you. Through you, Mayor. Thanks very much for your presentation, Jeffrey. Just a quick question regarding soft and hard markets. What factors dictate or speak to soft and hard markets?
Certainly. Thank you. Through you, Mayor. It really comes down to the profitability of insurers. So when they become very competitive and start lowering premiums, that usually leads to them having a higher loss ratio. And once the ratio gets higher, then they try and draw back, and that's what hardens the market. So if an insurer, there's different ratios that they have, but if they're going over 100%, that means they're paying out more claims than they are receiving premiums back in. So that's really what drives it, because when that happens, they say, listen, we're gonna get out of these risky classes of business, and we're gonna only write the ones that are profitable. So once the insurers start taking that capacity out of the market, it leaves less competition, and that is really what drives up the pricing. It also has something to do with interest rates and the time value of money as well. But on a basic level, it's just if there are more claims and premiums are low, they draw back and they want to increase the premiums, which hardens the market. When they get their levels back to being, below 100%, that's when they can be more competitive and offer, different classes of insurance. And that usually does take around, 3 to 5 years, I would say, to go through that cyclical process.
Okay, any more questions? Go ahead, Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Mayor Lamstead. I have two questions. Thank you, Jeffrey. The first one is on your slide, you mentioned that the total insured value of our assets has basically doubled since the last appraisal. So my questions around that are, when was the last appraisal done and by whom? And secondly, how much of the variance is due to new bills like our new public works depot versus an increase in value on your existing assets?
Thank you. Through you, Mayor. I believe this is the first appraisal that's been done since we've been doing business with the municipality, so I can't speak to when the last one was done. What we normally do is add a small inflationary increase to every year to the values, just to make sure that they are increasing to account for those. But I wouldn't be able to speak to when the last appraisal was done. On your second point, it's really the new buildings. You don't need to really have a appraisal on a new building as much as you do an older building. The older building, you might not know, what is exactly behind the walls or what types of things are the materials that are made of and things like that. That will really drive the pricing for replacement. A new building, you kind of know, okay, it was made with this. This is the type of roof. This is the contents. So it's a little bit easier to appraise those ones when they're new. It's more so just if you haven't had an appraisal done in 10 years for a building that's been around for 30 years, it's hard to say that exact value. What the Suncorp valuations really does is they get very into the nitty gritty of how much it'll cost to replace those assets. So they're looking at everything from, the contents inside to fire suppression mechanics and everything really to tell exactly, okay, how, and not only does that help us for the appraisals, but that also helps us with the insurers as well. So if we can say, hey, these buildings all have fire suppression, they've got sprinkler systems, alarms, things like that. That really gives us a better story to tell to the insurers, and they can say, okay, this is a better risk than a building that's made out of, timber that has no fire suppression materials in place. So not only does it help us with the actual values of the buildings, it gives us that extra information to say, okay, this is a better building. You should give us a cheaper price to insure this building versus another building where we might either not have the information or the information is just, poor.
And the second question, you talked about some ups and downs in the premium. Cyber insurance is down, property's up. What's the bottom line? What's the year-over-year increase in the premiums?
I believe this year the increase was about 30,000 and the total was around 500,000.
In percentage? Oh, okay, gotcha.
I don't know the exact numbers, but it was driven almost entirely by the property premium. And as I said, the premium rate didn't change. It's just the fact that the values were so much higher and that rate applied to those values caused the increase.
It's about an 8%. So it's about an 8%.
So,
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Any other comments or questions? Okay. Thank you very much for your presentation. I would entertain a motion to receive them. Councillor Franlin, go on. For the
Motion to receive.
Okay. A seconder for that motion. Councillor Cadigan for a seconder. Any other comments or questions? Seeing none, I will call for the vote. All in favor? Motion is carried. Thank you very much,
thank
Jeffrey.
you very much. Thank you.
We never like to see an increase, but when it's justified, you understand it. Thank you. Okay. We can move on to item 9 of our agenda now, which is delegations. We have none, so we can move on to item 10, which is staff reports. 10.1 is public works, we have none. 10.2 is recreation and facilities, we have none. 10.3 is fire and emergency services, we have none. 10.4 is building and planning. And 10.4.1, Adele Arp, would you like to speak to this item, please?
Thank you. And through you, Mayor Lanshead. This report is in reference to the submission of a complete application to the County of Peterborough from TD Consulting, Inc. on behalf of Elmdale Development for a 13-lot residential plan of condominium. The draft plan illustrates, in addition to the 13 lots proposed for residential use, a block for stormwater management and the other for an amenity parkland space. The southerly 1.5 hectares or 3.7 acres will be subject to a separate severance application for future commercial use as a storage facility. The subject lands are located on the east side of County Road 49, adjacent north of the municipal works yard. The report identifies the technical report submitted in support of the application, and a zoning bylaw amendment will be required. Planning staff will be providing council with a further report once staff have the opportunity to review the peer reviews resulting from the submitted documents. Therefore, it's being recommended that council receive the report from the planner regarding the proposed application for draft plan of condominium for information, and further that council direct staff to circulate the application to municipal departments for review and comment, and further that council direct staff to send a letter to the county acknowledging receipt of the notice of complete application for the proposed plan of condominium, and advise that municipal comments on the application will be forthcoming subsequent to the completion of peer reviews. And I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Okay, thank you very much, Adele Arp. Is there anyone on council that has any questions? Go ahead, Deputy Mayor Armstrong.
Thank you, Mayor Lanshead. Thanks, Adele. First of all, it's very exciting to see that there's development of new housing in our municipality. This is great that the private sector's stepping up and investing. My question is, how will these lots be serviced? Is it private wells and private septics?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, that's correct.
You know, the reason I'm asking,
Yes,
Mayor
I do.
Lanshead, is whether or not it would lend itself to a municipal services, but perhaps it's not large enough. Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you, Deputy Mayor Armstrong. Is there any other comments or questions? I'm seeing none. Is anyone prepared to make a motion? I see Councillor Francis, go ahead.
Yeah, I'll make a motion in support with the recommendations made by staff.
Do I have a seconder for that motion? I see Deputy Mayor Armstrong for a seconder. Any other conversation? Seeing none, I will call for the vote. All in favor? That motion has carried. Okay, we can move on to 10.4.2 of our agenda, and that's Adele Arp, our planner. Would you like to speak to this item, please?
Thank you, and through you, Mayor Lanshead. This report is in reference to the May 2024 resubmission of additional technical reports and revised plan of subdivision, which was originally deemed complete by the County of Peterborough on February 8, 2023. The resubmission increased the number of residential units proposed from 22 to 25. The staff report identifies the reports included with the resubmission, which resulted from the peer review comments based on the original submission. The proposed plan of subdivision contemplates 2 phases, which currently phase 2 lands are outside of the settlement boundary. The report identifies the additional technical reports included in the resubmission in support of the application. And again, a zoning bylaw amendment will be required. Planning staff will be providing council with a further report once staff have had the opportunity to review the peer reviews resulting from the submitted documents. Therefore, it's being recommended that council receive the report from the planner regarding the proposed revised plan of subdivision submission for information, and further the council directs staff to circulate the revised submission to municipal departments for review and comment, and further the council directs staff to send a letter to the county acknowledging receipt of a revised documentation and advise that municipal comments on the application will be forthcoming subsequent to the completion of peer reviews.
Okay, thank you very much, Adele. Does anyone have any comments or questions? Go ahead, Deputy Mayor Armstrong.
Ditto.
yeah.
Ditto what I said before. First of all, exciting to see. Second of all, how are they going to service the units?
They're
Private.
going private, yeah, on each lot.
Okay, thank you.
I'm curious about this because this is, sorry, Peter, I'm getting you.
That's okay.
This is half of the development, correct? There's a potential for another half of this development?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, that is correct.
With our not adopted provincial planning statement, we can expand boundaries pretty easily. Okay, thank you very much. Councilor Franzen, go ahead.
Thank you, Mayor. Through you, Mayor. This second application is in the same general area as the first applicant.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, that's correct.
Yeah.
They just had revised, they had responded to peer reviews that were originally submitted to them on their first submission. So in response to that, they decided that they needed some more technical review and hired some more consultants based on the peer results. And that allowed them to revise their subdivision application to increase it by 3 lots.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, any other comments or questions? I'm seeing none. Was anyone prepared to make a motion? Go ahead, Councilor Franzen.
I'll make a motion in support with the recommendations from staff.
Do I have a seconder for that motion? Deputy Mayor Armstrong for a seconder. Any other conversation, comments, questions? Now's the time. I'm seeing none. I will call for the vote. All in favor? That motion has carried. Thank you. We can move on to item 10.4.3 of our agenda. And Adele Arby, would you like to speak to this item?
Thank you, and through you, Mayor Lambshead. This report provides a general overview of the process undertaken resulting in the Buckhorn Community Improvement Plan final document. The CIP document is before council today for approval. Therefore, it's being recommended that council receive the report from the planner for information, and further that council approve the revised Buckhorn Community Plan project area and adopts the municipality's new Buckhorn Community Improvement Plan, and further that the bylaws to approve the project area and adopt the community improvement plan as noted above are on today's agenda for council approval.
Thank you very much, Adele Arby. Anyone have any comments or questions? Seeing none. Is anyone prepared to make a motion? Councilor Franzen and then Deputy Mayor Armstrong.
With a comment.
Sure, absolutely.
Through you, Mayor Lambshead. I know there is a whole marketing plan associated with the overall community improvement plan, but I'd certainly like to see a press release on this, and I'd like to see us go out with some, bang in terms of announcing this and getting just trying to generate interest in applications.
Go ahead.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, as any other planning process, there's a 20-day appeal period.
Oh, right.
So
Yeah.
just cautioning council not to expect anything
Thank you.
very quickly, but we'll wait till the 20-day appeal period is over and the CIP approved, and then we'll start the marketing.
Duly noted. Thank you.
Slightly delayed reaction on enthusiasm, but it's still there. Thank you very much. Okay, we have a motion. We have a seconder. Any other comments? Seeing none, I will call for the vote. All in favor? That motion is carried. Thank you very much, Adele. We can move on to 10.4.4 of our agenda, which is Adele Arbor, our planner. Would you like to speak to this item as well?
Yes, and thank you, and through you, Mayor Lambshead. This report provides a history and a general overview of the parking problems encountered within the municipality of Trent Lakes and the direction the municipality was headed prior to the AMPS process being established within the municipality for non-parking bylaws. Further, this report describes the overall process of the administrative penalty system for parking violations. This process is different than the AMPS process in place for non-parking bylaws. So as you can see, it wasn't as easy for us just to take a parking bylaw and add it to our existing AMPS system, because currently with the parking, you have to involve the Ministry of Transportation. You have to look up the license plate number. So it's a whole separate process. In that regard, we will be producing an administrative penalty system bylaw strictly for parking violations. And we will have to get the penalty notice booklets prepared. So there is going to be a little bit of a time delay before we bring this bylaw back to you, but I'm hoping we can bring it to you in September. Therefore, it's being recommended that council receive the report from the planner regarding an update to the municipality's parking bylaws to allow for enforcement through the municipality's administrative monetary penalty system, and further that council support amending the bylaws to regulate and control the parking of motor vehicles in the municipality of Trent Lakes to allow enforcement through the administrative monetary penalty system, the administrative monetary penalty system bylaw to include penalties for parking regulation bylaw, and that the CAO be delegated with authority to sign all necessary forms and applications to implement and administer the AMPS, including executing agreements with service providers and the provincial government, and further the council direct staff to bring forward the amending bylaws with a review by the municipal solicitor to a future council meeting for consideration. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you very much, Adele. Does anyone on council have any questions? Go ahead, Councilor Braber.
Thank you. Through you, Mayor. Thanks, Adele. I'm just wondering how, do we know the percentages of, people that are illegally parking, whether they're residents or they're transients? And how do we deal with the transient? Like if we're issuing an app notice on vehicles that are non-residents, is it a moot exercise, or how do we sort of recoup any money? And how does that apply? So if I was from out of town, I got a ticket, then I would just basically just rip it up because there's no recourse. How would that be handled?
Through Mr. Mayor, there is recourse. The municipality will run your plate through the MTO system. We will know your name and address related to that plate, and we will be sending the penalty notice to that address. And like anything else, our existing AMP program, if you disagree with the notice that you've been given, you can ask for a screening. And if you don't like the decision by the screening officer, you can request a hearing, and say you just ignore the whole thing and tear it up, then we'll have the opportunity to send something to MTO for a plate denial. So the system will work the same as it currently does.
Perfect.
So please don't rip that up.
Not me. Thanks, Adele.
Excellent. Any other comments or questions? Go ahead, Deputy Mayor.
Yeah, thanks very much. Thanks for this, Adele. This is a great step forward. My question is, from a process standpoint, who will be going out and ticketing? And will there be a proactive process in place? Because we know we have some trouble spots like in Buckhorn. You've identified in Buckhorn, Sandy Beach, et cetera.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, this goes a little further as well, because those are county roads as well, and they have a third party. The county has a third party enforcement. So we will be dealing with them, because my understanding is they're the only ones that are allowed to prepare a penalty notice for those areas. we will be looking after our own municipal parking lots and our own roads that are under our jurisdiction. So there is some coordination that has to be done to ensure that all our trouble areas are being monitored. The bylaws that will be coming forward will include who the penalty notice officers are, like a bylaw officer, and anybody else, someone through our Parks and Rec, who are out on properties all the time, looking after our municipal lands. They too will have the ability to write penalty notices.
Go ahead.
Yeah,
Another question?
thanks, Adele. That does help clarify. It also raises the question of how can we incent our partners at the county to be more proactive in areas like the Sandy Lake Beach and Buckhorn, because if they've got the authority and now they have the process in place through this outsourced group, which I understand, I'm not sure we're getting very much attention up here in Trent Lakes. I could be wrong on that.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, we'll be arranging a meeting with the county very shortly, either this week or early next week, to deal with that issue. I've seen a number of emails come in that it's a concern and we need them to be on top of it.
Excellent. Way ahead of me as always. Thank you.
Councilor Braber, go ahead.
Thank you through, Mayor. Is there a way that we can look into sort of deputizing the municipal, like Trent Lakes bylaw officers, to be allowed to issue tickets on county roads? Because I know on the highways, when I was in my previous work, technically they were jurisdiction of OPP, but we could still lay tickets under the Highway Traffic Act. So I don't know if there's something within the municipal act or elsewhere that you could maybe pursue with the county when you have the meeting, if there is an area where they could deputize something in law that could be adopted.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, that would be a service agreement between the county and the municipality. That's on the agenda to discuss that as well. More coverage is better than less coverage.
Correct. Okay, any other comments or questions?
Did I miss that there?
No.
Did I miss that?
You're good. You're good. That's all. It's better to speak up now when you have a question, because later it's too late.
Great, thank you.
Okay, any other comments or questions? I'm seeing none. Is anyone prepared to make a motion? No one wants to read that. I see Deputy Mayor.
All right, I'll be the guinea pig. A motion that we receive the report that we support amending the bylaws to regulate and control parking of motor vehicles in our municipality, that the CAO be delegated with authority to sign all the necessary forms and applications, and that council direct staff to bring forward the amending bylaws to a future meeting for consideration.
Thank you very much, Deputy Mayor Armstrong. Do I have a seconder? I see Councillor Cadigan for a seconder. Any further conversation? I'm seeing none. I will call for the vote. All in favor? That motion has carried. Thank you very much, Adele. We can move on to 10.4.5 of our agenda, which is Barbara Waldron, our Director of Building and Planning and CBO. Would you like to speak to this item, please?
Thank you, and through your Mayor Lamstead. The building bylaw was brought before council on June 18th, 2024 for the first time, where council deferred approval of the bylaw for additional time for council members to review. Staff obtained comments from some members of council, and in addition met with 2 members to discuss components of the bylaw. The bylaw that is before council today has been amended to simplify some language where requested. Additions of a couple definitions were added, removal of a few sections, clarification on homeowner designs, where and when they are permitted, and the expectations of homeowner designs, and other minor changes or improvements. The purpose of the building bylaw is not to rewrite the entire building code, but to capture the pertinent sections of the code that speak to the legal requirements, such as timelines around inspections, occupancy requirements, define required inspections, classes of permits, etc. Through the Act, council enforces the code through implementation of a building bylaw, and in addition to the prescriptive components of the code, the bylaw can also be written to address process of obtaining a permit, other prescriptive enforcement requirements to address other situations surrounding permits, such as permit transfers, whereas constructive plans may be required,
the newest types of constructions being seen, such as tiny homes, and what is required to accompany a building permit application for the type of construction being proposed, which is basic day-to-day operations. The bylaw also speaks to enforcement of Part 8 of the code, being sewage system installations, which is now under our jurisdiction. The bylaw before council today has been prepared through many thoughtful hours of staff to bring forward a document that is detailed, understandable, and meets the needs of the operations of the department. The document has been reviewed by municipal solicitor, and some members of council have taken a deep review of the document. Therefore, the document before council today is detailed and has been thoroughly vetted from the standpoint of legal defense, implementation, ease of staff to use and enforce the document, and to provide very clear direction as to what is required to obtain a building permit, as well as expectations after the permit has been issued, working towards closure. Having a detailed bylaw assists with a positive outcome in any litigation situations and reduces municipal risk. It is therefore the recommendation of staff that council receive the report from the Director of Building and Planning and Chief Building Official regarding the building bylaw report update, and further that council support the proposed bylaw. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you very much, Barbara Wallner. Does anyone have any comments or questions? I'm seeing none. Is anyone prepared to make a motion? The Deputy Mayor Armstrong for a mover. And
Yeah, I move to receive and to support the proposed building bylaw.
do we have a seconder for that motion? I see Councillor Franzen for a seconder. Any other conversation, questions, comments? I'm seeing none. I will call for the vote. All in favor? That motion has carried. Thank you very much, Barbara. We can move on now to 10.4.6 of our agenda, which is an amendment. We didn't talk about it. Derek Bertram, our planning technician, could you please speak to this item?
Thank you. Through you, Mayor Lambhead. The Building and Planning Department received a submission from Marie Windover and Al Mansell to construct a new dwelling at 1278 County Road 507 in May of 2024. It was identified by staff that the subject lands already exhibited a single detached dwelling, and as per the municipality's comprehensive zoning bylaw, only one single detached dwelling is permitted in the rural zone designation. After several discussions with staff and the applicant expressed that in lieu of a demolition permit of the existing single detached dwelling, which would be the traditional avenue, that the structure be subject to a change of use permit to revert the structure back to its original configuration, being the original Rockcroft post office. Staff considered this request to be reasonable and have attached a draft development agreement on today's agenda to support the recommendations by staff in the report.
Okay, thank you very much, Derek Bertram. Anyone have any comments or questions? I'm seeing none. Is anyone prepared to make a motion? I see Councillor Cadigan.
Motion to approve.
Okay. Motion as recommended to receive and authorize. Okay. Do I have a seconder for that motion? See Deputy Mayor Armstrong. Any other comments or questions? I just have one question. I thought we were allowing accessory structures here soon.
Through you, Mayor Lambshead, yes, we are working on an additional residential unit bylaw at this time that's still being worked upon by planning staff. So that is in the foreseeable future. And this property in question being rural designation would lend itself favorably to having that done. But at this time, we don't have the appropriate bylaw in place.
Okay, thank you. Any other comments or questions? I'm seeing none. I will call for the vote. All in favor? That motion has carried. Okay, thank you very much. Now move on to 10.5 of our agenda, which is finance. Donna Taggart, our CEO treasurer, would you like to speak to this item, please?
Thank you, and through you. Before you is the accounts payable for June of 2024. You will see we continue to have most payments made through EFT transfers. About 90% were made in that fashion, so just for your information.
Okay, excellent. Thank you very much, Donna. Does anyone have any questions or comments regarding this item? Go ahead, Deputy Mayor Armstrong.
Thank you, Mayor Lampson. Donna, I think your group has done a really good job shifting most of our payments to electronic. I do see checks made to Bell, UPS, Purolator, Hydro One. And I wonder if maybe we've just taken the pressure off trying to convert those people over to electronic, because obviously they're large organizations. Clearly they have the capability of doing electronic payments. So I just throw that out there.
Great. So thank you, and through you. Yes, they are not set up to take them at this time, but we will continue to attempt that.
Wow. Wow.
That's surprising, really, that they want me to do that all the time. Yeah. Is it just because we're corporate or do we know?
I'm not sure.
That startles me. Good question, Deputy Armstrong. Okay, any other comments or questions? Regards to accounts payable. I'm seeing none. Is anyone prepared to make a motion? Deputy Armstrong. go
Yeah,
ahead.
I'll make the motion to receive the report. Thank you.
Do I have a seconder for that motion? See Councillor Franzen for a seconder. Any other conversation? I'm seeing none. I will call for the vote. All in favor? That motion is carried. Okay, thank you. Done. We can move on to 10.6, which is administration, and 10.6.1 is Donna Taggart, our CAO treasurer. Would you like to speak to this item, please?
Thank you, and through you. So at the May 7th regular meeting, council directed staff to report back on ways to maximize parking in Buckhorn. Over the past few years, the municipality has completed work on improving parking and pedestrian safety in the hamlet of Buckhorn. This work includes the addition of a pedestrian walkway from the Buckhorn Community Center to County Road 36, along with 2 pedestrian crosswalks, the creation of 8 parking spots on county property located in front of the Anglican Church, and added parking at Odenang Lot. The municipality also entered into an agreement with the Buckhorn Community Center for the use of their overflow lot and added additional signage to allow, and the new pedestrian walkway to allow those to walk to the downtown core from that location. Unfortunately, the overflow lot at the community center has not been used due to its proximity to the downtown. There remain parking constraints in the hamlet that are not easily solved, resulting in at times 20 to 30 vehicles being parked on the new pedestrian walkway during weekends and holidays. The report today attempts to summarize the current parking availability along with any expansion opportunities. So there is an opportunity to add approximately 15 parking spots at the municipal property located at Odenang Park near the general store. A high level cost for this work is estimated to be between 150 and 200,000, and it would require an engineered retaining wall and paving to prevent erosion into the park. Although there would be some difficult topography to deal with, there is also 450 feet of unopened road allowance on Main Street that could add 40 to 50 spots that could be further investigated. Council have already today supported staff report presented on adding parking to the administrative monetary penalty system to allow for better parking enforcement. With the Lakehurst Road being a county road, staff have met with county staff about parking concerns and additional signage will be added. With the recent passage of the parking regulations bylaw at the county, there is now a third-party parking enforcement in place to enforce restricted areas on county roads. So today, staff are looking for council direction to obtain more accurate costing for the creation of parking at the Odenang General Store lot and at the Main Street Road allowance location, and looking for direction to include in the 2025 budget meeting a budget paper which will include suggestions for adding parking in Buckhorn in 2025. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Donna Taggart. Does anyone have any questions or comments regarding this item? Go ahead, Councillor Franzen.
Yeah, through you, Mayor. First of all, Donna, I'd like to thank you for such an in-depth report. But I found it very interesting. I would support increasing the spots on Neg Park and on the county property as well. And I would think that we should have it on our 2025 budget.
Thank you. So, and through you, I would be remiss if I didn't recognize Dylan. it was Dylan and I went out on a road tour looking at all these sites. He's been instrumental in this, and Evan also had a look as well, but thank you.
Thank you very much to all the staff that were involved in that. Very good report. Okay. Any other comments? Go ahead, Councillor Braber.
Thank you through you, Mayor. Thanks very much, Donna and Dylan.
And Dylan.
Could you clarify for me the Main Street road allowance, where you're referring to? I know there's pictures and whatnot.
Right. So thank you, and through you. Dylan is there. I asked him if he could speak to some specifics of that location. That would be helpful.
Dylan, can you comment on that question, please?
Hi there, Mayor and Council. Yes, I can clarify that. Through you to Councillor Braybrook, the Main Street Road allowance is, if you see in the third or the second last photo there, runs from the end of basically where Pizza Valoro's parking area is through to Henry Street on the other side, and it's approximately, we did a GIS measurement there, 450 feet. If you went with perpendicular parking spots, estimated at around a 10-foot width, which is a pretty decent sized parking spot, that's where the number of 40 to 50 comes from. But that location, so if you were to drive straight into where Pizza Loro's customers park, there's some thick bush in front of you. It dips down off the grade of the road there, and then continues fairly flat out in behind. There's some neighboring properties there.
Great. Thank you. Yeah, it's certainly walking distance to many of our businesses in the downtown core of Buckhorn. Deputy Mayor Armstrong, go ahead.
Yeah, thanks, Mayor Lambton. Thanks for this, Donna. I know this is actually very quick response to the comments that we got at our CIP open house. Support what you're suggesting. I did pick up on one thing you said, which is that we're working with the county for additional signage. And I think although we have added parking by the church and Odnang, et cetera, and have the agreement with BCC, it's not clear necessarily to a visitor where that additional parking is. It doesn't say that it's free municipal parking, it just says parking. And who knows what that is. So I think we can be clearer on our signage to make sure that what we already have done, the investment in that, gets fully utilized as well. So I think signage is a big part of our solution or problem. We'll call it the solution.
Thank you.
Yeah, I agree. If you get people to go there, I'm concerned that half the time you see a problem on the Main Street, it's a truck and a trailer. I just don't know how we give a spot for that, because many people bring boats and trailers and RVs and stuff, so it's going to be a bit of a problem finding a large enough spot for a few of those. I like the ideas that it increases parking that we need, because we're going to stop people from parking someplace. Go ahead, Deputy Mayor Armstrong.
Yeah, building on what you said, Mayor Lamb said, you're absolutely right. And maybe it is that no trailers and no boats or whatever are allowed within the hamlet of Buckhorn, and they have to use the accessory parking. So you can restrict who uses what, where. So maybe it's a simple solution to solve exactly the problem that you're identifying, which is a problem.
I seen the solution on breakfast television this morning. It's a gondola. You just put a gondola from the upper parking lot down. Or no. Thank you. Thank you very much. Any other comments or questions regarding this item? Go ahead, Councillor Braber.
Sorry, through you, Mayor. I just wanted to make mention of the John Street road sign. I know that's not an option, but I just wanted to mention that I wouldn't be in favor of that. I just wouldn't want to take any of the property away from the general store. And that sort of thing. So I'd be reluctant on that one, just as an aside. Thank you.
Thank you. That's more of an access to the lake as well, so it would be very cluttered there if we did that. Okay, any other comments or questions? Is anyone prepared to make a motion? Seeing no hand. I see Deputy Mayor Armstrong. Go ahead.
Sorry. Jump in. Yes, motion that council receive the report that we direct staff to obtain costing for the Odnang location, and further direct staff to investigate the use of the Main Street road allowance, and further that staff prepare a 2025 budget request to bring to the November 2025 budget meeting.
the November meeting for the 2025 budget.
Is there anyone who would like to second that motion? See Councillor Franz. Any other comments or questions? I see this being part of the connection to my dream of a gazebo. That's for another day.
Yep.
Okay. I don't see any other comments or questions. Go ahead, Councillor Braber.
Sorry, through you, Mayor. Just for clarification, on the one aerial photo that shows the Old Nang parking lot and the proposed area for the 17 beside the general store, where would the property line be on that? Just as far as interest sake.
Thank you. Through you. Dylan, are you able to speak to that as well? I believe there's some kind of marker there, if I recall.
Yeah. So I'm gonna blow this up here a little bit on my screen. Through you, Mayor Lambshead, to Councillor Braybrook. As you're looking at this, the property boundary, there's a corner at about the bottom right side of what is the bait store there. It's kind of one corner post, and that goes straight out towards Lakehurst Road there. There's a like a small patch of grass on the left, or just on the left of the entrance to the general store there. And it's right around that area that our property is. So most of that granite face is municipal property. There would maybe be a very small sliver that does not belong to us.
Great. Thanks, Dylan.
It's a significant area. If we utilize it with a retaining wall and some fill, it's a great idea. We'll have to figure out where we're going to take the water from there. Okay. Any other comments or questions? Thank you very much for the answer, Dylan.
No problem.
I'm seeing none. We have a mover and a second. Any other conversation? Seeing none, I will call for the vote. All in favor? That motion has carried. Okay. I look forward to that. We can move on now to 10.6.2 of our agenda. Donna Taggart, our CAO treasurer. Would you be prepared to speak to your Q2 summary report, please?
Thank you, and through you. Before you is the Q2 report for 2024. You will see that operations continue to be very busy in all departments. And some of the highlights for you, there was a completion of all the performance reviews for staff, for all of staff. There was 1.2 million awarded through delegated purchasing authority through corporate services. There was an enhancement of the records destruction process, and that was through corporate services as well. Q2 gained 675 social media followers with 1,636 more web pages viewed on the municipality's website between Q2 of 2023 and 2024. There was an increase in building permits issued, with 433 building inspections also occurring. And there was a continued decrease in the planning permit applications. Fire and emergency services call volume remains high, although there was a slight decrease in incidents compared to 2023. There was, however, an increase in training hours, with 6 more firefighters having now completed the NFPA Firefighter 1 and 2. There was 318 tons of garbage taken to the transfer stations, which is consistent with 2023. 30 participants cleaned 15 roads in Trent Lakes, collecting 75 bags of garbage. There were 65 self-watering planters and geranium barrels installed, and completion of the work at Old Nang Park with an official public ceremony. There were 626 work orders completed by recreation and facility staff, taking 944 hours. And under green initiatives, the new Trent Lakes tanker truck was delivered during Q2, which carries 1,600 more gallons of water than the truck it's replacing. And there were several diversion programs for mattresses, paper shredding, and bulky plastics. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Donna Taggart. Anyone have any comments or questions? It's been a busy part of our year. Go ahead, Councillor Brayber.
Thank you, through you, Mayor. Thanks, Donna. Just regarding the communications, the social media, it's nice to see that the Facebook page and Instagram page is increasing. I don't know whether I missed it on here. Is there an indication of how many people are visiting the actual municipal website and numbers for that?
Yes. That's on here.
Is it on here?
So it says website views 56,036 in Q2. And it was 54,400 in Q2 of 2023.
Yeah, just a follow up to that through you, Mayor. It'd be nice if there was a way that we could be pushing that out on our website, on the main page when people do visit, or somehow maybe in the mail outs, just to increase the awareness of go to the website, go to the Instagram and Facebook. I know a lot of people aren't on Facebook and Instagram. It would be nice to get consistent messaging and that sort of thing to try to increase it even more.
Through you, I agree. We do promote the newsletter as well, which does promote that as an avenue for people as well. But yes, we can always keep pushing it.
Thank you.
I think 56,036 is an enormously huge and great number. I think that's amazing, considering our population, both seasonally and in the summer. Okay. Deputy Armstrong, go ahead.
Yeah, and just to build on that, I think the newsletter is the key to this because it pushes information out, right? And it seems to me that only a month or so ago was more like 500. And we were having discussions about, gee, could we have a contest or something to boost it up to 1,000? So clearly the number is growing. And I think that's where we should place our emphasis, is trying to continue to get. And I know every time I go to the website, every time I go to a new page, do you want to subscribe? Do you want to subscribe? So I know we're really promoting it, which is great.
Yeah, excellent. Thank you for your comment, Deputy Mayor Armstrong. Any other questions or comments? I'm seeing none. Is anyone prepared to make a motion? Yes, Deputy Mayor Armstrong.
I'll be your backup here. Yeah, motion to receive.
Okay, do I have a seconder for that motion? See Councillor Cadigan for a seconder. Any other conversation? Seeing none, I will call for the vote. All in favor? That motion has carried. Thank you very much, Don. That's very detailed. I know that's a lot of effort for a very short amount of conversation. Now, we can move on to item 10.7 of our agenda, which is corporate services. So 10.7.1, Jesse Clark, our Director of Corporate Services. Clerk, would you like to speak to this item, please?
Thank you. Through you, Mayor Lamstead. The Buckhorn Community Center has submitted an application for their event, which is to be held on August 17th and 18th. And they require a temporary extension to their liquor license to allow service in a defined area adjacent to the community center building. As there's no specific process in place for this, council approval is required. Upon receipt of the application, staff circulated internally and received comments from building, fire, and planning as detailed in the report. The regulations specify the municipality may approve a temporary outdoor physical extension of a premises which is located in the municipality and to which a liquor sales license applies under certain conditions. And staff are recommending approval of the temporary liquor license extension.
Okay, thank you very much, Jesse Clark. Anyone like to speak to this item or is prepared to make a motion? Go ahead, Councillor Brayber.
I'll make a motion to receive and to approve the temporary liquor license extension.
Okay, do I have a seconder for that motion? Seeing Councillor Franzen for a seconder. Any other conversation? I'm seeing none. I think it's important that we support our facilities in Trent Lakes, and I think this is showing that we do that. So thank you very much, and I will call for the vote. All in favor? That motion is carried. Okay, thank you, staff, for that report. Okay, we can move on to item 11 of our agenda, which is correspondence for information. Item 11.1 is the Ontario Land Tribunal refusal of application decisions. If anyone wants to speak about that, or we can just receive that.
Motion to receive.
Do I have a seconder for that? Councillor Braybrook. Any other conversation? Deputy Mayor Armstrong, go ahead.
I can, or if you'd like to.
Go ahead.
I was just going to say, I think this is an important decision that supports our decision to deny the request for the zoning bylaw amendment change. And the basis that we provided is the same that the tribunal came down on, which is that this is a new development, not a redevelopment. And they had experts that supported that. So I think we should feel very good about this appeal against our decision being denied.
Thank you very much for the comment. I agree. I'm sure we'll see another application come from that, but our decision was just. So thank you very much for counsel. Okay. Any other comments or questions? I will call for the vote. All in favor? That motion is carried. Okay. We can move on to item 12 of our agenda, which is correspondence for action. The Ontario Lawn Service Medals. Anyone like to speak to that item? Or prepared to make a motion? Go ahead, Councillor Franz.
Yeah, I support the motion and support the idea of firefighters and police officers receiving lawn service medals.
Thank you very much. Do we have a seconder for that motion? Seeing Councillor Cadigan for a seconder.
With clarification,
Clarification, go ahead.
it's paramedics
Paramedics.
and police.
Yep. Okay.
Firefighters already receive it.
Okay. Sorry.
Okay. Any other conversation regarding that? Seeing none, I will call for the vote. All in favor? That motion is carried. Thank you for supporting that. I think that's important. Okay, we can move on now to item 13 of our agenda, which is bylaws. Item 13.1 is an agenda memorandum. And Jesse Clark, our clerk, would you please speak to that item?
Thank you. Through you, Mayor Lamstead, there are several bylaws on today's agenda that didn't have a corresponding staff report or public meeting. B 2024-58 and 59 are bylaws to stop up and close and sell the original parts of the shore road allowances. B 2024-60 is the bylaw to appoint a deputy fire chief. B 2024-64 is a bylaw to stop up and close and sell parts of a road allowance for file LL7S 2302. B 2024-66 is the bylaw to appoint Aqua personnel as bylaw enforcement officers for the purposes of enforcing the watering regulations bylaw. And B 2024-67 is the bylaw to appoint a municipal law enforcement officer.
Okay. We can go through these bylaws one at a time, or we can adopt them all at once, or we can pull one or two if we go ahead. Deputy Mayor Armstrong.
I would make a motion to approve all of these, unless anybody wants to pull a particular one out.
Councillor Cadigan?
I'll second.
Okay, seconder. Any other conversation? I just want to make sure that we remember that we're appointing a deputy fire chief. Thank you very much for someone putting their hat in the ring. I greatly appreciate that, and I'm sure all of council and the rest of staff do as well. Okay, any other comments or questions about our bylaws? I'm seeing none. I will call for the vote. All in favor? That motion is carried. I think we just saved 45 minutes. Thank you, Jesse, for your memory. Okay, we can move on to item 14 of our agenda, which is business arising out of a previous meeting. We have none unless someone has something they would like to speak about. Notices of motion, we have none. Information items. Does anyone have any information items? I'm seeing none. Closed meeting. We have none, which is item 17 of our agenda. We can move on to item 18 of our agenda, which is business arising out of our closed meeting, which we have none. We can move on to item 19 of our agenda, which is the adoption of the confirming bylaw, which is item 19.1. Anyone prepared to make that motion?
Excuse me, Mr.
Yes.
Mayor. I think that there are a few information items.
Okay, I didn't see a hand.
Yep.
Go ahead. If
Okay.
you have an information, item, my apologies.
Yeah, I just wanted to talk about the Journey for Health in Kinmount on
okay.
Sunday.
Yeah.
It's a major fundraiser for the medical center in Kinmount. And that we have 3 town hall meetings coming up on 3 consecutive weekends. The
Yep.
first one being in Lakehurst Hall, the
Yep.
second one being in Galway Hall, and the third one being in Cavendish Community Center.
Okay, thank you very much. Any more?
No, that's all I have.
Okay, thank you very much. And Councillor Braber.
Thank you through you, Mayor. I just wanted a clarifying question on Councillor Franzen's motion or information item.
Information.
As far as the notice for the meetings, I know the August 10th one, I know there was a push out in our communication on the website for August 10th. Was there a previous notification, or was that the first time that that was put on the notice for the public?
Thank you, and through you. I don't know that off. I might have been the first time. I'm just not sure.
Right, because I guess I'm just going back to all the communication issues and that sort of thing, and notifying the residents in the community of, I mean, these are important meetings to let the different residents know about the different meetings. And I mean, that's this weekend coming up. So it's less than 10 days. And I'm just wondering whether that was something that fell through the cracks or something that we could address moving forward. I know we're a year into talking about a year and more into communicating messages to our residents and that sort of thing. It's just, and this is something that I think is important.
Right.
All the meetings and that sort of thing. It's just sort of thrown out sort of last minute, it seems to me.
Okay. Well, thank you, and through you. I'll have to do a little bit of work on that. I know we had a staff member off that just came back a couple of weeks ago that would traditionally look after that, but I would have to check on that further, to be truthful.
Right. And I guess just to follow up to that, did we discuss like a backup for that, like backup plans for if the communications officer was off, or I don't know whether we have.
Thank you, and through you. The direction was given to the departments. They would have to post their own information while that position was not filled when she was off.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay, is there any other information items? I'm seeing none. I will skip now to item 19 of our agenda, which is adoption of the confirming bylaw. So item 19.1 is the confirming bylaw. Would anyone prepared to make a motion? See Councillor Cadigan for a mover. And Deputy Mayor Armstrong for a seconder. Any conversation? None. I will call for the vote. All in favor? That motion has carried. Okay, we can move on to item 20 of our agenda, which is adjournment. Would anyone like to adjourn? We're going to stick around. Councillor Franzen for a mover. Councillor Braybrick for a seconder. I will call for the vote. All in favor? That motion has carried. We are adjourned. Thank you very much, council. Thank you very much, staff. Thank you both the virtual and physical galleries. We are adjourned.